Man, this is flat out. Balls out. Way back when I actually tried to start a YouTube channel, tried to start doing things like Ed does with Car Trek on my own. Back when I'd get a car, I decided, hey, if I'm getting a car from somewhere on the other side of the country, I'll just fly down there, drive it around for a week, adventure, and if it breaks, I'll fix it, and if it doesn't, whatever. The story I told in VINwiki quite some time ago about a 1957 Corvette I got, red with white cones, got it down in Texas and randomly drove around the Southwest in December and had a bunch of adventures everywhere from Texas to Pike Peaks to the friggin' White Sands Missile Range. And when I was on it, I was connected on social media to a guy I knew from the local Cars and Coffee here in Ohio who since moved out to Malibu. And he goes, you should come by and visit. And I said, well, that sounds like a lot of fun, but probably not this trip. And we stayed in touch. And he told me that there was a rally coming up that him and his son were going to do. And he said I should bring a car out to California and do it. I said, well, that sounds awesome, but that's way too far for me to bring a car to bring an event. But I tell you what, if you guys got an open passenger seat, I'll come out and hang out with you guys and do it. He's like, actually, my son's bringing his friend and I got a friend of mine coming along, but I'll loan you my wife's Maserati. And I'm like, deal. So it was a beautiful car. It was a Maserati Gran Turismo, the two-door. And this one was beautifully in the rare color of red. It seems like they're all white or black or gray or some general boring monochromatic thing, but this one was red and it was awesome. So it comes time to do this rally. The craziest thing about it was too is you have to have a navigator. And of course I had nobody to bring from Ohio. He connected with the guys in this club in the rally. It's like, hey, can any of you guys want to be a navigator to him? I get connected to a guy I've never met, and I'm like, okay. So I go on Facebook to look this dude up. His profile picture is of him standing wearing like a costume of like an old-timey prisoner's outfit. You know, like the striped clothes, the striped pants, and the striped shirt, and the hat, and he's standing in front of like a Ferrari Enzo, looking up at the camera like flipping the bird. I show this to guys I'm working with, and they look and they're like, you're going to California and going navigating with this guy? Yeah, you're gonna die. I don't know, it's gonna be entertaining. And at this point in my life, I was single and a little more carefree and whatever. I'm like, whatever, this will be fun. I'm hanging out with a friend and the car's cool and we'll meet some new people, have a good time. We meet up before dawn in Malibu. He's driving, I think, a Ford GT. His son's got some crazy supercharged Mustang, and I got the Maserati. And we're cruising along. We're going down to Orange County, and it's just this gorgeous sunrise on the Pacific Coast Highway. I mean, the Pacific looks beautiful. Dawn's coming up. The cars look great. I feel like $1 million. This is where everything becomes like one absurdity after another. And it was all so beautiful and cliche. Now the first cliche, beautiful absurdity is, this rally begins at the Affliction World Headquarters. You know, like the shirts the guys on Jersey Shore wear? Yeah, the world headquarters in the parking lot. And it was somewhat funny to me, and I wish I still had it, but of course in your goodie bag, you get an Affliction shirt, which is the only one I ever owned. And it was bright pink with black velvet, which is exactly the kind of fashion I would naturally wear in Ohio, and never did. But it was so beautifully terrible. I think my wife made me get rid of it eventually. But anyway, so we start there, and we're hanging out, and everybody there is colorful and interesting. They're like supercharged C6, Z06 Corvettes. There's massive, insane tuner twin turbo GTRs. There's Ferraris. There's like massive ACR Vipers. There's dudes on 1000cc bikes. I mean, hot stuff. This is fast cars. And there's this one dude I go up to and meet. Apparently he's like a part-time actor, and he's got a DeLorean painted white. Of course, I've had DeLoreans, and that's brilliantly eccentric. So I started talking to this dude. He is like such a colorful, entertaining character. Later on Facebook, I randomly see pictures of him just randomly hanging out with his DeLorean, now painted pink, and hanging out from Red Fool from LMFAO. I'm like, this is the kind of group I'm now hanging out with. So I'm hanging out with a dude with the DeLorean. We're talking up. And this guy comes over like he just came from the Subaru National Convention. He's got this massive beard and like a flat brimmed hat. And he's like vaping up a storm like a steam locomotive. And he just comes up, walking up to me and the dude with the DeLorean. And he goes, what are you guys, a domestic couple? While he vapes this big cloud of smoke in our faces. And I'm just like, at that moment, it's kind of the moment where you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna go for this. I looked at him with this beer and I go, now normally, if a guy from Ohio goes down to Orange County to a guy that's looking like that and says that stuff, you're probably gonna get killed. But I just pulled it off well enough, and he just pauses like he's gonna kill me, looks at me, goes, I like you, and walks away. I'm like, all right, the day is going all right, I think. Whatever. The rally hasn't started yet. We're gonna get to the official stage at some gas station at like the outskirts of town before the desert and the mountains. I'm like, okay. So on the way before, we're on the highways going through the greater LA area, and we're heading over to Beverly Hills to La Brea. I've never been there, seems like fun. Everybody's cruising, we're taking pictures on the highway, and eventually we get to this gas station. And right before we get there, I knew the rally's gonna start. Now, when you say rally to me, I think about like the sporting thing that was popular when my dad was young in the 60s, where like you get a sheet to navigate, and it's like, go this many miles, and it's this amount of time, and then you turn right when you see something and go here. That's what I think a rally is. So I say to the guy, I'm like, so what should we do with the rally? What's our strategy? Should I drive just like a little bit fast so, you know, if we're ahead a schedule, we can slow down a little bit and meet the right time where we're timing? He's like, huh? And I'm like, yeah, the rally, like, how are we gonna time this right? Should I drive a little bit faster and early so we can meet it? He's like, man, this is flat out, balls out. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, it's a race. And this is a moment where like, I didn't even know what to think, because I thought this was like an old school time rally thing, and suddenly I find myself in a all-out race to wherever it is that we're going. Problem is, I don't think that way. And now I've been presented with a challenge that I am part of a group and have to be part of this group. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess we should start toward the front so we can be kind of in the middle, because it's gonna suck to be in the back, and probably the guys in the front are gonna get tickets. So I figure we'll start here. So we stop at this gas station, we fill up, and I look around, I'm like, we'll just kind of creep up to hear where it's gonna start. And dude's like, yeah, there's gonna be cops. And I'm like, what are we doing? So I take off. Yeah, it's fine. Guys are driving pretty sporty, but it's not much different than like Cars and Coffee or the Hocking Hills cruise used to do in Ohio. You just kind of drive sporty and everything's cool. And I'm following along, and there's a dude with a Viper ACR up there. There's a guy in a 1000cc GSXR. There's a Nissan GTR twin turbos. There's an Ariel Atom. There's this fully gutted, raced out Mercedes ahead of me. I'm like, okay. And so we're ripping through these, you know, canyon roads and the mountains, and it starts getting more and more rural, and there's nobody around. And I'm driving with these guys, and I'm thinking, you guys aren't that fast. So I started picking off a couple of cars, and I was just kind of playing with them. You know, I had no intention of going faster, and certainly this isn't my car. I don't want to hurt the guy's wife's car. Are you kidding me? So we're driving along, and that's when it starts to kind of like the red mist gets hold. It's like, yeah, whatever, California. I'm gonna show you guys what's up. So we start picking one guy off. I'm like, pick off the guy in the racing Mercedes, whatever. And then the guy whose group race or rally, whatever it is, event it is, he's the guy in the ACR Viper. Big wings, nasty car, everything, and I'm driving a basically automatic paddle shifted Maserati Gran Turismo that's a guy's wife's car. So we're taking him, and I rip around him like, yes! So then I get a little too excited. I'm like, dude, you wanna just, should I just pass these guys? I'm just gonna pass them. So I pass them, I'm like, let's get the Ariel Atom. Take him out, pass that guy. And then so I'm like, all right, so we passed these guys. That wasn't that hard. Let's put some distance between us and them. Let them show them who's boss. That's just kind of how I thought. I was getting kind of cocky. Except the Maserati's brakes were getting a little hot from these canyon roads, and I'm like, uh-oh, I better adjust my driving style. We're gonna have any brakes left. So I started downshifting a little earlier, and we're going, and we're just driving along and having a nice sporty drive. And then all of a sudden we realized, wait a minute, we forgot the guy on the bike checked out. We didn't pass these guys. We still got a guy on a motorcycle to catch. I can see the guy in the bike like turns down through the mountain. I'm like, oh, we'll get him. So we're coming up on the guy on the bike, and that thing is fast. I mean, a good rider on a GSXR, he's gonna check out. So I catch up to this guy, and I'm with this guy, and we're like, and meanwhile, the hamburger, he's like, oh yeah! He became like straight hype man the entire way. So that's not helping me be civilized. So I'm following him for a long time, close enough by. And there was this section of straight where he didn't throttle up, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna keep the button pushed. And we just rip on by, and now we're leading. And so now we're getting out into the desert. There's nothing around. But then the problem was, I can see in my mirror now that the dudes driving like the 1,000 horsepower GTRs are now in my mirrors in the distance. And I'm like, uh-oh, yeah, we can't get caught. Let's push the button down. So we are now hauling the mail. But in my mirror, I can see that GTR coming at me. I'm like, oh, he's gonna get me. He comes ripping around. Like, and by ripping around, we're both clipping along really well. And he's up there, and I'm letting him have some distance because we got a long way to go. What am I even doing out here? Let him be out front and, you know, get a ticket if we get pulled over or something. But it was so cool because we come to the crest of the hill and we're slowing down a little bit because you can see like some structures and things around. And all of a sudden it has the biggest fireball come out of the exhaust you've ever seen. I'm like, oh, that was cool. Suddenly, a bright blue other super crazy tuned Nissan GTR comes off a side road. They cut the course and cheated. So now the race is gonna be on. So we take off and everything is escalating to the point of absurdity at this point. And now we're taking off toward twisty things in the mountains. Somewhat as a relief to me, the guy that cheated in the GTR, his car blows up or breaks down. He pulls off. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about him. It's a guy in the GSXR and he ends up dropping back. And then there's one more GTR and he is just ripping. And there comes a point where I'm gonna pass this guy and we slow down for traffic. And in traffic, there was a number of cars and I'm gonna go pass him. And this guy holds back and I'm like, no, we can pass him. So I pass him in the GTR and we're just doing a normal pace. And I pass a car and I go ripping by. I don't remember what car it was, but when I went by the one vehicle that I didn't see in front of a truck, it had a light bar on the top of it. So I just passed the guy and I'm driving along and I don't see any lights. Nothing at all. So we're driving along and I'm really looking out and paying attention. And we have to get off at some exit and go to this gas station. Now, the Maserati GT is not like super modified, doesn't have a supercharger. We're doing okay on fuel. And I'm looking at fuel going, I don't think we can make it to the destination, but we got enough fuel and flexibility that we wouldn't actually have to get fuel at this gas station. So I told him, I tell you what, if the gas station's really busy and all the pumps are filled, like if we can get fuel, let's just get fuel and get out of there. But if there's a bunch of people at the pumps, we'll stop, we'll take the picture of us with the timestamp and we'll just go and get it somewhere else. It makes sense. So we go to this gas station and pumps were filled, forget about it. We got out, we take a picture, timestamp it, and we take off. I missed a turn. We're like going and scrambling through this and we're ahead. Unless somebody cheated, like we're winning. So we're running out of fuel at this point. But fortunately, we're up in the mountains. And I figure, okay, there's traffic coming up. So let's just put this thing in neutral and coast down the mountain, save some fuel. Because there's traffic. So that's what we do. Meanwhile, the guy whose wife's car this was calls me on the phone and goes, my son ran out of fuel. Do you think you can turn around and get it? I'm like, we could, but we're almost to the destination. I think we're winning. He's like, all right, I'll get it. We get to the final stretch road and we're all excited and talking about it. Go to this hotel and we come blazing, I mean, fancy hotel. Like they're gonna meet you here. It's like on the water, it's some ritzy place and whatever. So we come ripping in this Maserati, turn around the pull around. And the valet comes up, sir, may we take your car? I'm like, take my car, nothing, hold up, get out, take a picture. We just won, like this. So we get out and the valet's like, whoa, and take a picture. And it is literally the cockiest, biggest douchebag picture I have ever been caught in my entire life. So for anybody that wants to comment on this, by all means, this is me being a total douchebag in this picture. But it was the greatest thing. And we got there and nobody beat us. And the craziest part of the story was that we never saw the guys in the GTR again. They didn't show up. And I'm like, what the heck happened? And one of the guys recounted that they passed him. He got pulled over, allegedly in I don't know if he was in handcuffs or there was a bunch of cops and they were gonna put him in the back. And they're like, what happened? How'd they get you? And he pointed at the sky and went like this. They sent out the police helicopter. But fortunately, we were stealthy enough with no stickers and got out of the riffraff quick enough that they got caught, that guy got busted. So I'm like, well, we beat the helicopter and we were stealthy enough and didn't do anything crazy and we got here first. And I don't know any of you, but who's ready to party?
Happy New Year! This time of year I know a lot of us are trying to clean out our garages and maybe get rid of some things that we probably don't need. So if there's an extra set of wheels and tires sitting over in the corner or an exhaust that you forgot to install or a part you bought two of and forgot about that too, the best place to sell them is on ModFind. And likewise, if you're trying to find a part, new, used, aftermarket OEM for your car, truck, project, whatever, the best place to shop for those is also on ModFind. ModFind is a free app that you can download in the Android Android or iOS store, and that will allow you to buy, sell, transact, whatever you want to do, a car, a part, a tool, anything related to the automotive hobby. It also allows you to create a listing and then add a kickback to incentivize your followers to share it with their followers. They make it very easy to share to all the major social platforms, and we'd like to thank them for their support of VINwiki this month. Please go download their app today, buy, sell your parts. A few of mine are already listed there, and it's a great platform, and I cannot wait to see where they go from here.